The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vixens Who Rule. I have a special guest on the show today, a guest that I've known for a long time, in wrestling. I probably, if I had to guess, I'd guess maybe going back as far as maybe even 10 years ago. I mean, a long time, but she's never been on the show before. And I consider her a veteran. She's made her way around and has made a name for herself all over the globe, not just here in the United States, but, in Japan and everybody. And I'm talking about cheerleader Melissa Anderson. Melissa, how are you doing tonight?
Wow, I'm doing fantastic. So flattered by your words. That is so sweet. Thank you.
Now, I have to tell you, Melissa, I love you, and I'm a big fan of yours, but I'm looking at you, and right next to your face is a big horse's ass, which is going to be very distracting to me throughout the entire interview.
All right, I'll move. I'll get in the way of my stallion.
Yeah, just block out the ass, and I think I'll be okay.
Well, it's just a painting.
Okay. Hey, Melissa, I got to tell you something. I am very, very surprised when we were setting up this interview. Like you had never really used Google Hangout before, but you thought you had it because your husband Jason told you. And I'll tell you why that surprises the crap out of me. The one thing I will never forget about you, and I'm sure you remembered this because I saw you, last year down at Lucha Underground. And I mentioned this to you, and I know you remember it. I swear to God, you were the first person that sat down with me and explained Twitter to me. And literally, at that time, nobody knew what Twitter was. There was literally a couple of people on Twitter. And I remember specifically you were sitting down with me and you were on this Twitter and you were explaining it to me. And I think at the time, Ice Cube had an account or, somebody. But I mean, this was way, way, way before its time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh my gosh, I totally remember. I discovered it. I loved it. I knew it was going to blow up. And I had so much fun with it at the beginning because I got, at the time, I got Awesome Kong onto it. And for whatever reason, I remember during that time period, I was so into, for some reason, I kept on, entertaining myself by playing reruns of Celebrity Jeopardy on SNL.
Right.
I love those bits. Right. I love those bits. And then me and Kong, we came up with our own game on Twitter called Celebrity Wrestling Jeopardy. So stupid question. Oh gosh. I can't even remember. Just I would ask her and she would say TNA caters, stupid or wrestling or for 100, and she responded with what is a love hotel in Japan?
Yeah.
Just all wrestling.
I can't imagine. You're kind of going in and out a little bit. That's why you were breaking up a little bit. I was having a hard time hearing you. Sometimes it's so touchy with the connection. If you move a lot in front of the camera, you'll go in and out. So that's why I was trying to listen, but I was missing a few things. I swear, Melissa, are you the type of person are you constantly working the phone all the time, your cell phone?
Yeah. A little bit.
That drives me crazy because first of all, the older I get, it's harder and harder to see. And that's why when you brought up Kong, I had to chuckle because Kong has huge hands. And I can imagine her working these little cell phones. But I swear, Melissa, I'm one of those guys that if it were up to me, I wish the device was never, ever invented. I wish it was old school. The phone with the cords. You don't have a phone on the road. You got to find a phone booth. But you're the opposite. You like this new technology today.
Yeah, I mean, I utilize it all the time, and sometimes I don't know where I'd be without it in the times that I really do need it. But the times that I don't have my phone on me, it's just like, wow, like, you know, we need to get out of the house more often. You know, we need to just interact with human beings and not interact with each other over devices. And I can't believe I'm saying that on this podcast, looking at you over a device.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Like business purposes, but well, Melissa, are you still? Because you know, I mean, I'm known. Are you still like traveling like all over the world, or have you been in the States for a while, or are you still going to Japan and everywhere?
I'm still going to Japan minimum once a year, from anywhere to 30 to 45 days.
Wow, that much, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking 30 to 45 days in one tour?
Correct. Yes.
Now, I have to assume with that, you have to speak some Japanese, correct?
Yes, I know enough to survive and get by. And getting around Japan is actually pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So nothing has really been too much of a problem. It's not that bad because they use English characters. And now, even today, it's a little bit easier because they have a lot of the same, like retail stores and same kind of places that we have in America. So it's a lot easier to adjust nowadays.
God, I still, Melissa, I got to be honest with you. I can't, listen, I had never left the country. And in the last year, they flew me over to the UK 3 times. And I was cool with the UK. It's a long, long flight, but I was cool because everybody spoke English. I can't imagine going to a country where, like English isn't the first language. I can't imagine going for 30 to 45 days. What's the, you're married as well. So what's the positives for you making a trip that long to Japan, and what's the negatives?
Well, the positive with a specific trip like Japan is that the days completely just blend together. The time really, really does go fast, and the positive is that I get to live the dream really 24/7. I get to go to training X amount of times a week, and from there it goes by so quickly because your brain is constantly in survival mode. You're constantly adapting, constantly trying to communicate, whether it's inside the ring, wrestling, business, or simply just going grocery shopping. So the time really does go by so fast because, I mean, you're challenged every single second, and it's not just at work, it's in your daily life. I mean, the negatives is like the time away from home, obviously. It takes a toll, but I mean, like with the technology today, it's easy to stay in touch and, go on like that. My mom is probably the one that's the hardest on me. She doesn't like it when I travel. She's always checking on me, and she'll try to, FaceTime me or Skype me or whatever. She's the hardest on me, and it's funny because we don't live that close. I'm in San Francisco and she's in the Los Angeles area. So it's not like we see each other regularly when I am home in the States, but for some reason when I'm out of the country, she gives me a much harder time.
Well, Melissa, I got to tell you, and you know this, if I'm living in San Francisco, I'm never leaving San Francisco. I'm not going anywhere. My beloved Giants are in San Francisco. But not only that, I've been to San Francisco enough to see the Giants. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking of coming out there the beginning of April for the opening of the season this year. But San Francisco is my most favorite city in the world. Listen, I grew up in New York. Both of us, we've been everywhere wrestling wise. I've never been in a city that had more character than San Francisco. There's no other place in the world like San Francisco. How did you wind up there?
I wound up there because of wrestling. I wound up here because after I graduated high school, and by then I was wrestling for a couple years, I really wanted to go to All Pro Wrestling at the time. I had worked for them a couple of times, and the reason why I wanted to train up there because it the training was obviously good. We were working with guys that had only been wrestling for a year, and the way that they worked in the ring and moved in the ring, you would have never known the difference if they were training for a year or 6 years. So training was that good at the time. It was unbelievable. So I knew that was something that I really wanted to be a part of. I wanted that training because these guys that were training for only a year moved like veterans in no time. It was pretty amazing.
It's real expensive there, though, isn't it, Melissa?
Oh my God, yes.
So is that tough on you and your husband, especially being in the wrestling business? I mean, we know that there's not the permanent paycheck coming in every single week. Does it get tough at times to live there?
Yeah, it's not easy. The economy is changing all the time. The San Francisco's changing all the time. The environment, gosh, I mean, you can barely drive. I mean, San Francisco's even making streets smaller because they are so anti-car. They just don't want vehicles in the city at all. And I just read, I think in an article the other day, that the average tourist spends up to $80 a day just on parking. It's just ridiculous.
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah, up to $80 a day on parking.
Well, thanks for smartening me up, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you pick me up at the airport, and I'm going to rent a bike.
Oh, yeah, you can do that. We have the little bike rentals. It's kind of, oh gosh, what is it called? But they have this, I forgot what it's called, but they have the stations at like all the corners where you can, just you subscribe and swipe your credit card and get on a bike and ride throughout the city.
Now, do you go to AT&T Park much?
Not that much. It's only fun going with like friends and like a group of people. Like, I almost feel like I'm insulting you saying that, I've never really been like a big baseball, but whenever
it's a little insulting, Melissa. I mean, to be living in San Francisco and saying I don't bleed black and orange, quite frankly, is a little it's a little insulting to me. But guys, see, I mean, listen, Melissa, I got all my giant toys right here on my desk.
I know. Oh no, we gotta get you a new one.
No, I didn't break it. It's okay. But yeah, a little insulting. But I mean, listen, you've been there though, right?
But here's the thing, though, going to that park for a game, it's a great experience. It is so
beautiful, right?
Fun.
Now you've had the garlic fries there, I'm hoping, right?
Yes.
Oh, unbelievable, the garlic fries at AT&T.
It doesn't matter if you're a baseball fan or not. That park is an experience.
Beautiful. It's unbelievably gorgeous. Okay, Melissa, let's talk about you. Now, I got ADD, so I got to fix my doll here first, or it's going to drive me crazy. Hold on. All right, there we go. He's all fixed. Let me put him back in place. Everybody's happy. Okay, Melissa, I found some stuff about you doing research. Now, Melissa, I always knew. I know a lot about you, okay? The one thing I always loved about you, and I never really understood, but now I got it. First of all, there's a couple of things that I knew about you, and I was a little surprised, but I always know you're very, very, very old school, traditional, very respectful of the wrestling business. I know you're always trying to get me to come to that Cauliflower Alley, which I'd love to go. I love those old timers. I have so much respect in the world for them, but I'm afraid if I ever went to one, they'd throw rotten tomatoes at me. That's why I told you I don't go. So I know you love the history and the nostalgia of the wrestling business. There are two things that really surprised me as I did my research for this interview. Number one, you've been around for so long and have been to so many places. I was shocked to still see how young you were. That was number one. Number two, now it makes all the sense in the world to me. I did not know this. I did not know that your dad was a professional wrestler, and as a young kid, that's how you got in the. I did not know that. Now I understand. Tell me a little bit about this now.
I did not know that you did not know.
I did not know. I always knew you had such a rich roots and a respect for but I never knew why. Now I know.
It's funny because when people ask me, how did you get into wrestling? It's almost I kind of jokingly say, oh, it's a family curse. You know, it's something that I can't escape. But yeah, my dad, Doug Anderson, and his brother, Billy Anderson, were the Fabulous Andersons back in the early 80s. They worked for Carl Lauer in Southern California, who Carl Lauer then was the president of the Cauliflower Club for a long time, which now it's B. Brian Blair that's the president. But yeah, I mean, it was very common for my mom and I to sit in the audience when I was 2 years old and watch Dad and Uncle Billy wrestle. And
Melissa, so when you say your mom and you, so were there no other siblings? Was it just you?
Yeah, I'm an only child, yeah.
Wow, so you were really then tight with Dad and the whole business growing up then, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dad and I were super close, and wrestling was one of our special connections. I loved watching him, and we used to watch WWF together, and Billy Anderson would ring announce WWF LA Sports Arena shows, house shows, and I would get to go backstage and get autographs. I still have some of those autographs today, which are probably like 20 years old.
Give me some of your most prized autographs. Pop me a little bit here.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna crack up. Bo Beverly from the Beverly Brothers.
Oh yeah, okay, no, that's a good one. That's obscure. That's probably worth something. Who else?
I love them. Marty Jannetty.
Jannetty, okay. I just saw him a couple of weeks ago.
Do you remember Crush with all the colors?
Oh,
Crush?
Of course, yeah. Brian, are you talking Crush Brian Adams?
Uh-huh.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Those for me, I mean, I'm laughing right now, but like those were at the time, those were like my little treasures. Like those were like I was such a huge fan of them.
And you definitely still have them, right? Without a shadow of a doubt.
I have them, yeah.
Now, Melissa, let me ask you this. Of course you idolize Dad. You know, there's no question about that, and Uncle Billy. Ooh. But, like, who was the one wrestler that you would just totally mark out city for?
Gosh, you're going to crack up, but you know who
Dutch Mantel?
Oh, I love that guy so much.
I love Dutch so much. I love every once in a while I'll get an email. I thought of him because, you know, Clemson's. He's a big Clemson fan. So I thought of him. I love Dutch. But, okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So who'd you mark out for the most?
For some reason, I really, really love the model Rick Martel.
Really?
I was so into the model Rick Martel. And it was just, I don't know. At first I loved him and like Sherry Martel. I love that whole gimmick. And the model Rick Martel, it was just everything he did in the ring was just executed so clean. There were no baby steps, no stuttering. He would execute his move, do it nice and clean, and then do his character and, you know, pop the audience or get the audience to boo. And there was just something about his style and execution that, like, I absolutely loved. Like, when he was in the ring, he knew he was the man.
But Melissa, let's also admit it now. Let's be honest. He was also a looker. Did that have anything to do with it? Very handsome man.
I think the confidence was more attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot believe this is one of the guys that I sit there and I'm like, first of all, I mean, I don't want to get into this whole thing, but I think the Hall of Fame is such a sham because at the end of the day, one guy decides who goes in there. Vince McMahon, period. Rick Martel is one of those guys that I'm like, how can he possibly not be in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that, but you're right. You're absolutely right. He had a huge part. He had a huge part during that era.
He was great. He was a great wrestler. He had a great character, a great worker. I mean, he had there's got to be, obviously, when somebody's not in, there's always a little story or a little something. But man, if anybody should be in, it should be Rick Martel.
Yeah, I didn't even think of, but that's absolutely true. I mean, I love him because I love him, but you're right. Like, I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
He was a major part of that era.
Major part. Now, so I'm also understanding. So now you literally, you started getting your foot in the water in a serious way. Like, when you were only like 16, 17 years old, and like even going on the road and working shows. And in the middle of all that, which I think was phenomenal, you were still trying to get your high school diploma, believe it or not. Was that difficult?
No, actually, I was getting more so active in it that I got my high school diploma early so I could start, wrestling more. And luckily, I mean, I didn't get it early because I was intelligent or smart or anything like that. It was just I took more classes to get all my credits and credentials and just get the diploma and get out of there. I came back for the graduation, yes, but I just took a bunch of extra classes to basically just cover my grounds to get my diploma pretty early, so it didn't interfere with wrestling. Yeah. And I actually started training at 15 and had my first wrestling match on my 17th birthday.
That's unbelievable. Now, Melissa, was there who was the first female that kind of took you under her ring? Because I thought this was like a great story. Like Medusa. I've known Medusa like since probably '93, and she just tells the story that I love hearing of the early years when Sherry Martel. She was the new kid on the block. And Sherry literally used to beat the crap out of her in the ring. Really old school, traditional. Did you go through a period of that? And who was some of the first women to really, really take you under their wing?
Well, first to touch base on Medusa, her and I connected recently, and she blessed me with some of those stories about Sherry Martel. So I heard some, I couldn't believe it, because if that would have happened, some of the stuff happened to me today, I probably would have thrown in the towel a long time ago. And but the first person to really kind of take me under her wing was the person that I had my first wrestling match with, was Lexi Fife. And yeah, she was a major guide and a major part of my wrestling career, and yeah, she was my first wrestling match.
Now were there, you said Martel was one of your favorites, but what female wrestlers did you look up to? Are there any female wrestlers that you wanted to kind of embody and work like, and kind of take what they presented in the ring?
The only female that I admired a lot of females. The only female I can honestly say that I wanted to embody and be like was a Japanese girl named Michiko Omakai. She's now retired. But I met her and worked with her when I went to Japan for the first time in 2002. And, I mean, I just wanted to look like her. I wanted to be her. I wanted to emulate her. Like, I really loved the way she looked and she moved in the ring. She was just, like, beautiful and sexy and, like, 1,000% dangerous at the same time. And it was something like, I just really loved the presence that she had in the ring.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man, Melissa, I got to work with some really, really like tough ladies that I'm talking about that like would kill me like in a fight. And like the two that come to mind immediately. And I'm just curious if you ever crossed paths with them. I don't know if you did or not. But I got to tell you, man, two of the toughest girls I ever met in my life. Medusa, of course, she's tough, man. But two of the toughest girls, Jackie Moore and Luna Vachon. God rest her soul. Did you ever have the opportunity to work with those two?
Let me think. Luna Vachon, no, but our paths did cross on the indie scene. a few times back when she was still married to Gangrel. Lovely, lovely, lovely woman. I have not ever seen her on, on a bad note or anything. I have heard stories, but even in person, as nice as she is, she's still somebody that I don't want to be on her bad side. And Jackie, we were at TNA at the same time. Yeah, and she was, she was just super crazy and vicious in the ring, but like you and I know, one of the nicest people backstage.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. Melissa, you want to hear a great Luna story that you'll get the biggest kick out of?
Oh boy, here we go.
It was so funny, Melissa, and you'll appreciate this because I know how much, you're just an aficionado on women's wrestling. You'll love this, okay? Keep in mind, man, I was at the WWE when it was kind of the changing of the guard. So Luna was there the same time as Sunny and Sable, okay? And Luna was so freaking old school. Sunny and Sable didn't know how to work. Mero was trying to teach Sable how to work. And Luna, absolutely could not stand these girls because of, what she represented in women's wrestling. So I'll never forget this in a million years. We're at a WWE show and I see Luna start popping off at Sunny. Okay. Now, Melissa, let's face it. If you've got a quarter of a brain in your head and you're a female and Luna starts popping off at you, you're running the other way. I don't know anybody who would want to have anything to do with Luna Vachon, right? So I'm watching from a distance, and now Sunny starts mouthing off to Luna. Yeah, Melissa, I'm seeing Luna's face get redder and redder. I'm seeing her clutch her fists by her side, I see it coming a mile away. So all of a sudden I'm like, she is going to kill this girl. So I remember I walk over there, and I try to get between them, and Sunny would not shut her mouth. Okay. Finally, I get between them, and Luna backs up, full bore, tries to get at Sunny, and spears me in the process, and took me down in this laundry cart, that happened to be there. I swear to you, Melissa, I had never been hit so hard in my life before or since. You talk about the real deal. She was, she was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Oh, she's a beast. She trains hard. Oh my God.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Right.
Melissa, let me ask you this, because you'd be a great person to ask, and I kind of just brought it up where I'd say right around that time, with Sunny, and then Sable started working, and then Deborah came on the scene, and shortly after that you had your Trish Stratus. The women's wrestling started going in another direction, okay? But also let's be honest. With that direction it started going in, it was also good for the women because it really started getting more popular. Where the women would usually have the one match, it was like when they had the midget match, back in the day. But now all of a sudden the women are becoming much more prominent. But also with that, Melissa, the women's wrestling is changing a bit. It's becoming, more sexy. The clothes become more revealing. And, I'm going back and I'm thinking of, Medusa and Bull Nakano and the Fabulous Moolah. And, it wasn't that way, Wendy Richter. But now all of a sudden, they start looking like sex symbols, maybe more than female wrestlers. However, they're getting much more attention. They're getting much more play. Women in the business are starting to make a lot more money. How did, you being so traditional and starting at 16 and seeing all this, where did you sit on the fence with all that?
At the time, it was tough, and I was young, and I still wasn't, even though I grew up around the business, doesn't mean you're truly educated on the business unless you really experience, dealing with people firsthand. And when I was young, when I started wrestling, I had a completely different mentality. I was one out of 4 girls on the high school wrestling team, so I was a legit amateur wrestler. Wrestled on the 54 to 145 weight class. And when I trained in the ring, my mentality was I'm going to wrestle and move like a male. I'm not going to move like a female. I'm going to be no different than that. And at the time, I didn't understand how important image was, how important the entertainment factor was.
Pro Wrestling's history class is now in session with Back to the Territories. Join host Jim Cornette and J.J. Dillon as they explore Mid-Atlantic wrestling.
Sitting there with his hands like this was Jim Crockett Sr.
3.5 hours of wrestling history told through rare memorabilia and exclusive footage.
Nothing topped Wahoo McDaniel and Johnny Valentine.
Featuring over an hour of lost Mid-Atlantic film footage from Jim Cornette's collection.
The kid from Minnesota, it was going to be something, Ric Flair.
Head back to Mid-Atlantic Wrestling at shootinterviews.com.